So this is the final stage of the Northern District's 3-day tour, the B grade event, and we're just coming up a slight hill here, coming into the final, I think it's about the final 12 kilometres of the race, and let's have a quick look at the course so that you're on the same page. It was, if you look down here, it was 90 kilometres or just over 90 kilometres in length. And we went gradually downhill for roughly 40 to 45 kilometres, and then out the back of the course we started heading back up a gradual incline for the next half of the race. So this little section through here was quite tough for me. I managed to stay with the group through there, and then this was the final challenging hill as we sort of stepped up into the crosswinds on the run home. So yeah, the crosswinds heading home into the final 10 kilometres were probably some of the most challenging parts of this race. And you can imagine with this final hill, the group was breaking up into smaller groups, so they were all chasing each other on the way home. But yeah, here we are. This is a 5 kilometre climb. We're sort of, these first 2 kilometres are quite, they're not really that steep, and then the last 3Ks sort of step up a bit and become a little bit more challenging. So the group is pretty much all together here. We had one guy, Phil Smith, who jumped up the road. He was up the road by about a minute and a bit by this stage, about a minute 30. And number 59 there on the right hand side, Jared McClintock, he was leading this tour overall but had punctured about 5Ks prior to this. So one of his mates gave him the wheel, and which was nice of him, and Jared, number 59, chased back onto the group. And this is a great bunch of blokes, these guys, because they all pretty much waited for Jared to chase back on, which was just fantastic sportsmanship. So we're all together. You can see just up the left-hand side there as this road goes left. That's basically the start of the steep section of this climb. And I probably could have been a little bit further towards the front, but I knew I was going to get dropped anyway. So here we go. So you can see some of the boys are using deep dish wheels. The deep dish wheels aren't exactly the lightest. Obviously there's a lot more material that goes into them, but we're not all pro cyclists with a choice of a quiver of wheels to choose from. So pushing 350 watts here, up to 400, 500 watts. You can see it's just popping up to 490 there. So we're not going slow by any stretch of the imagination. These guys, even though this is the B grade bunch, all these guys are pretty fit. So we haven't even gone under. I'm in the 550 watts here. We're just going under 300 watts now. I don't know, that might have been my power meter just dying on me, but yeah, it was roughly 300 and above going up through here, so it wasn't easy. And you can see the guys through the trees there. The guys the good climbers are getting off the front. So if you're contending this race on GC, this would be the time to attack on this climb, because the climb comes up and then it flattens out pretty much all the way to the finish, and that last 10Ks is just literally a time trial all the way home. So this is where the group's starting to really break up. I'm sitting with a guy called Stephen Bick from Coburg. He's to my right there with the Chevelle. So there's about 30 metres now. I'm off the back, and I'm sort of thinking to myself, look, if I can get over the top of this climb, Stephen and I could pretty much chase back on. Now, Stephen is a really, really strong time trialist, so I knew that staying with him would be a great way for me to get back onto this bunch. So this is all about damage control right now. It's going through my mind. I was pretty tired. I was hurting a little bit here, and so it was good to have a couple of guys with me to sort of chase this group back. So I'm going to continue with the same vein of answering a few YouTube questions while we go through this 20 minutes of final 10Ks. Ross Stewart says, any suggestions on a bike to get into some racing, but also for commuting? Was thinking a cyclocross bike, but after watching your videos, maybe a pure road bike would be a better option. Yeah, look, Ross, I would suggest a road bike purely for the sake of being able to do bunch rides. You can get into some racing. It's a more versatile option. You can always put fat tyres on it, and you could even use the road bike as a cyclocross bike if you wanted to. But you know, if space at your house or money is a problem, then a road bike would be the best option. I've got a cyclocross bike, but I don't use it nearly as much as my road bike. Usually the cyclocross bike is for one-off occasions or maybe 5 or 6 races a year. But there's some guys during the week who go and do cyclocross throughout the week. So look, it's I would say a road bike though, personally. So back to the racing here. Stephen Bick is driving it on the front. We're sitting on 41 k's an hour. This is a slight head crosswind. So Steve's, there's by no stretch of the imagination is it easy going along here. We're up to 33 k's an hour, just going up to a slight incline just here. You can see the elevation up the top. It's not a great representation of where we're at in the race, but it just shows you that it's pretty much all the way, it's up all the way to the finish line, plus we've got a head crosswind, so it's sort of, this was quite a tough gig, this last section. I mean, I'm pushing 320 watts at 35 k's an hour, so, sitting on quite a high heart rate, so pulling over for my turn here. So it's just Stephen and I left. Damien Bovolino was with us for a little while, so he was rolling some turns with us, but as a testament to how hard this section is, Damien sort of dropped off the back and rolling into the finish on his own. So this is Steve's picked it up to 46 k's an hour. We're on the flat section here. I'm just sitting behind him, just trying to spin the legs over, get some recovery. And I'm looking at the boys up the road there thinking, are we going to get back on? And the temptation here is to just go right into the red zone. But you don't want to do that. You've got to treat this like a time trial and work well together. So Steve and I are working well together. I remember this part of the race, I was thinking, Steve, although he's been pretty quick here, I was thinking, he looks a bit tired, and I don't know if we're going to make it across the gap. And I was feeling pretty good at this stage, so when I come through my turn, I absolutely buried it to get across to the group, as you'll see in a second, and left Steve behind. So sorry about that, Steve. So this crosswind, like, we're all hurting here. Everyone is at their absolute max. We're doing 50 k's an hour, and everyone, even the guys in front, the group in front of them, everyone is at their max. Doesn't look like it, but we are. Steve's pulled a massive turn here, and I'm just sitting pretty. He hasn't pulled me through yet. So I've kicked up to nearly 1,000 watts. Probably not the nicest thing in the world to do. I probably should have just gradually built that up and let Steve sit on me. But I sort of thought, I've got to get across to these guys, otherwise it's never going to happen. So And you can see here the Hawthorn guy here has just pulled out to the right and sat up. Now that is an example of how hard this is. Everyone is in the herd house along here, trying to get some cover. I mean, I've just come in on the back of this guy's wheel, and I'm literally in the gutter, in the dirt, just trying to get a little bit of shelter from the crosswind. Boys are absolutely driving it. As I said again, you can see in the elevation profile at the top of the screen, it's slightly uphill all the way to the finish. Plus we've got that crosswind, head crosswind, so it's just not easy racing. Now at this stage we've got 4 guys up the road. So Jared McClintock, who's chasing down Phil Smith, he's up the road with 3 other guys. So there's 4 of them away: Nick Mahoney, Gabriel Kerry, and Sam Slaney. And they're all chasing hard. And then you've got this group here, which is myself, Rob Story, Michael Dunn, Linton Sadwowski, I think it is, Marco Rando, Liam O'Brien, Simon McCauley, Nick Norden, Roy Clark, Matt Robertson, and that's about it at this stage. But yeah, so we're all sort of swapping turns. I mean, I'm in the red here. I'm sitting at the back just trying to recover a little bit. But all these boys are up the front, so rolling some turns. In these sorts of open fields, you can see that open field, you know, there's no trees, you don't get a lot of cover. So those crosswinds are coming straight across the paddock and hitting us, full brunt. And having deep dish wheels, they tend to catch the wind really easily, so it's probably a better option to have wheels like this guy, not so deep dish. Melband43 says, thanks for this, yet another fine tip. Just wanted to know, when coming out of the last corner, I've found that if you're not quick enough to, you're going to be at the back of the line on the front straight as you come into the headwind. What's your tip to get to the front of the line? So Melband43 is asking the question in relation to my criterium tips on the final corner as you're coming into the sprint finish. Look, you don't make up places in that last 2 kilometres. I mean, that you should be well and truly in a position that you want to be in the bunch by that 2K. So it's really the last 2 to 3 laps of the criterium that you want to position yourself. If you're at the back of the bunch by the final turn, you might as well sit up because you're at the back of the bunch for good. You know, you're not going to make up places in the last 2Ks or in the last K. And even if you do make up some places, you're going to gas your legs a little bit, and you probably won't sprint as well as what you could have. So you've got to be getting into position in the criterium well before the final 2Ks of the finish. So, and you know, I think I've explained that pretty well in a few of the videos. You know, always stay towards the front. Don't get caught in the middle of the bunch. Stay on the outskirts of the bunch, so that way you can move forward. And just spin a little gear so that you're not stomping on that big gear and gassing your legs for the final. So I'm not sure what you think of the new screen setup. This is the one of the new templates from the Garmin Verb. So we've got the power down the bottom, elevation up the top, and the cadence, that little spinning thing on the left hand side there. So anyone wanting to do this with their own GoPro footage, I'd just say put the footage through Garmin Verb first, and then export it to a file that Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro or whatever you're going to use, and then edit the footage. So I always run it through Verb first, and then I edit all the footage later. So we're coming into the final, say final 4 or 5 kilometres. I'm just trying to get my heart rate down a little bit from a little effort over the hill. I remember feeling absolutely horrendous along here, so that's partially why I wasn't pulling any turns. So the final 2Ks, Freddie Grover says, what would your one piece of advice to a youth rider be? To young riders, I'd say just enjoy the sport. Just spin a little gear, don't push big gears, don't try and emulate what your dad and your older peers do. Just try to enjoy the sport, have fun with your mates, go riding with people around the same age as you, and just enjoy it, because you've got many years. I mean, I'm 41 now, and I'm still racing at a pretty decent level. So cycling's one of those sports where you're going to have many years ahead of you. So just enjoy it, Don't do too many big Ks. Just get a coach, get someone who's registered and has done the courses, and if you find that you're quite a talented young athlete, then explore the opportunities. But the most important thing is to have fun. So you can see here I'm moving forward. Look, we're sprinting for 5th place here, but some people would say, why'd you bother sprinting? Well, you know what? What if all these guys crashed, or they took a wrong turn or something? I mean, I think if you're in a bunch like this and there's points up, for 5th place there was 1 point available. There was a time bonuses, so I think it's very important to bring home the bunch that you're in the best position possible. And so yeah, even though this bunch is sprinting for 5th, it was you can see we're all sort of lining up. And if you're there, you may as well do the best you can. So I think this is Robbie Story in front of me. I can't quite tell, but very strong sprinter. So I'm lined up on his wheel. And when you only got one side of the road like this, you've sort of got to push your way through. So sorry about that, boys, but I nudged my way through there, popped up as hard as I could go across to Michael Dunn, who's a very strong bike rider in his own right. So that's him there in the Hawthorn kit, and just zipped around him and brought this little bunch home for 5th place. So I think I got 1 second time bonus, which for me it really didn't matter because I wasn't anywhere overall. And that was that. But there was 4 guys up the road. They did really well. 5 guys actually, including the winner. So these are the final results. Stage 4, Phil Smith came in 1 minute 40 seconds in front of Nick Mahoney and 3 other people. And then I brought home the rest of the group. You can see here we're all the same time, 1:26, 1:28. So there was about 8 of us there. And then a few guys. This really outlines that this race was hard. When you've got guys coming in at different times, you can see that it was a tough run home, rather than if the whole bunch was the same time. So looking at these times here, you can see it pretty much outlines that it was a tough race. We had a group here and then a group here, and then just 1s and 2s coming in at different times. So tough gig, really tough race. This group here, this 1 minute 40 group, there was actually 4 riders in it, but Jared, if you look down the bottom here, Jared, who was in contention overall, Nick Lau gave him his front or rear wheel because Jared punched it about 15 kilometres from home, and it was a bit like the Richie Port scenario with Simon Clark. They both ended up getting disqualified rather than fined. So I thought that was a bit unfair considering it was a club race, but the commissaires, they've got rules to abide by, so that was the final ruling, which really put Phil Smith on the podium now that Jared was knocked out of disqualified of the overall. So Phil Smith won it with Nick Mahoney and Gabriel Kerry coming in 3rd. So well done, guys, and that was a wrap.